Try to shut that door. All right. So what's going to happen is that the machine right now is see the little green blinky lights down in the corners here. So that's recording what I'm saying, and it's recording whatever I write on the board. Okay, so one of my students in my winter session class wasn't writing anything down during class. Just sitting there. Yeah, this is awesome. What happens if you just sit and don't do anything? Well, you still learn stuff, don't get me wrong. You'll remember a lot of stuff from class. The problem is if you write stuff down, when you look back at what you wrote, you remember more. If you just look back at, like some teachers just email you PowerPoint slides and point and read to them, you remember some of it. But it might, one of the things that's really important when you're going through this, especially it's called a survey course like this, where there's just a crap ton of information given to you all semester, write crap down. I use crap twice, I won't use it anymore. Why should you write it down? So when you look back at it, it activates the behavior of writing it down. Okay, so when you, if I'm going to write, like right at the top of this, I'm going to write, so I'm going to write, what is psychology? If you can't read what I write, fuck yours. No, just ask, and I can try to write it clearer, or I'll point at it and read it again a couple times, like teachers like to do. What should you start your notes with? Oh, I almost called my friend Tim. Oh well. Why does the locking mechanism change on my phone? Like you close your phone to lock it, and then it doesn't lock, and then sometimes it takes a picture, and sometimes it's an undocumented feature. Sorry, moving on. I Ubered in my pocket. I'm walking in front of my house. Steve? Why is it? You called an Uber? Like, no. I pull my phone out. Yeah. Sorry. Where was I going? Carrying out the trash can, bonking into my pocket, I Ubered. Do not put Uber on your home screen. Just so you know. Okay. So, what is psychology? Okay, so we're going to write the word mind up here. Okay, what is the mind? Good work. Okay, so we're going to write brain over here. What else is it? Okay, behavior over here. I'm going to write behavior over here. Okay, ooh, emotions are interesting. Emotions over here. Oh boy. Okay, I'm going to write that. What the hell is consciousness? Yeah, how do you know you're aware? You're aware. See a problem with that? How do you know you're conscious? Well, you're conscious. How do you know you're unconscious? You don't. You only know when you're conscious. It defines itself, which is terrible for science. Brain, science. Behavior, science. Emotions, ugh. Consciousness, ugh. Why do you think the word philosophy is written up here? What is philosophy? Okay, I'm going to write the word theory under here. Come on. The more you chitter chat and shout out wrong answers, the more we can move on. Ooh. So, I'm going to write one more word up here. Your thoughts. Okay, so when we look at what psychology is the study of the mind. That's what it is. And what psychology does is psychology takes philosophy and tries to science it. So philosophy is the study of ideas, philosophical ideas, the study of one of these things that your generation has really embraced is a thing called a meme. Well, a meme has been around in philosophy for a long time. This idea of a meme is an idea that lives beyond its creator. Do ideas evolve? Yeah. So a long time ago, someone wrote a book, and it evolved into a bunch of different religions. The Old Testament is kind of the start of a lot of different religions. So someone had an idea to write this book. Okay, whether divine or not, that's not for my purpose. But this idea of this book, has it transcended the people who wrote the book? The ideas from this book have changed the world. And Confucius wrote a bunch of crap down, and what happened? We still reference it today. Buddha said a bunch of really interesting things, and we still reference it today because the ideas that these old philosophers came up with still live in us today. It's really funny. If you go back and read some old philosophy stuff, the problems that they were suffering from in ancient Greece and ancient Rome are the same crap that we're dealing with today in our country this year. They're yelling about immigrants back then. Because are humans much different than they were back in BCs? No, we got less teeth. Pretty much it, really. And the Neanderthal male like myself is not very useful in our society today anymore. I feel you, but we don't have much purpose. Because is it really important to be big and hit things with rocks? No. What makes you smart? And what makes you successful in our world? I just said it. Being smart. Knowing how to use a computer. Knowing how to network properly. Not good. Anyway, moving on. So, the idea of philosophy, the study of memes, have you guys taken memes to the next level? Memes create themselves daily on Instagram. All of a sudden, someone posts a picture of a damn egg, and what happens? I'm serious. The idea, whoever posted the damn egg, all of a sudden, boosh, it explodes all over the internet, and it flashes, and then is it dead yet? Oh, is the egg still living? I mean, I can do, I don't want to play it, but I can do PPAP. Okay? Just by doing that, many of you are going, PPAP, and then you start dancing. Okay? And, or let's see, what's another one that's baby shark, doot, doot. Okay. Right now, my son has the Flex Tape meme generator on his phone. So it's an app you can download, and he goes, that's a lot of damage! And he presses the button. But so, with the idea of this idea, that are ideas alive? They evolve. They live past their owners. They're living organisms. Are there bad ones and good ones? Yeah, so they're good and evil. Almost like spirits that... Okay, now, so the study of psychology has a problem. Because this is the only thing that's scientific in psychology. The study of the brain and behavior. But what are most people interested in? Your consciousness, your emotions, how you feel. One of my favorite things in psychology. Why do people go to see a psychologist? Oh, look, it moved meme down. That's cool. I didn't realize it would do that. Let me put that back up there. Why do people go see a psychologist? What is psychology for? Say it louder. Yeah. If you have to go see a psychologist, what do your friends say? That's right, exactly right. What's wrong with you? That's how you say it. Just so you know. So, why do people assume that a psychologist is trying to fix something wrong with you. Yeah. So, a lot of psychology gets a bad rap. They assume that if someone sees a psychologist, they're not good enough to fix it themselves. Do you think everybody could benefit from seeing a psychologist? Yeah, because what does a psychologist do? What do they do? Well, they explain describe, and understand, and try to control what? Well, yeah. I want to change the word control to this, because a lot of people don't like the word control, but it does mean the same thing. Psychology is to study the mind. It's a scientific study, and we'll go through all the annoying science as we go through next week. But most psychologists work in therapy as psychologists. And most psychology is meant to analyze your behavior, to explain, describe, understand, and try to control your behavior. So, a lot of psychology, people are afraid of psychology. Every time I say, oh, I'm a psychology professor, they go, ooh, I better watch what I say. And I say, oh, I've judged you already. I really don't judge people, but that's what they assume because they think they're trying to analyze you. We don't really analyze everybody. Sorry. It's fun, but it takes time to analyze someone. It's a lot more work than it's really worth. Because once you really get to know someone, you realize that most people are about the same anyway. Anyway, so psychology has this big problem. What does the word stigma mean? Yeah. That's just a stereotype. But so stigma has a different meaning than just a stereotype. You can prejudge someone pretty quickly just by looking at them and make a guess. Say, what? It has a bad association with it. So you can stereotype someone as being, oh, they're this, but when someone is immediately stigmatized, they're immediately seen to be evil. Mental illness throughout history has been seen to be evil. Okay, and it kind of comes from my stupid Western culture, the old white man with beards. But if you hear a voice in your head, what is it caused by? Demons. Demons. Oh, you are possessed. We need to exorcise the evil demons from your skull. When anybody does something that's hedonistic, it's a sin, which means that the devil made you do it. You chose to do it. You ate the little kid's lollipop. I'm bigger than them. They have a lollipop. But then you feel guilty. Why do you feel guilty? You don't feel little kid's lollipop? Get out more. Okay. They don't even hold them right. They just take them from their... Okay. So, if you don't talk, I just go on, and it's just stupid. Anyway, so why do you feel guilty according to old Western society? Come on, someone in here felt guilt. You're afraid of the wrath of God because you did something evil. Get your old white culture in. Okay, now, but in reality, why do you feel guilty? Because your emotions, you're the stupid part of your brain. I'm a brain guy. Your brain basically goes, oh no, this might cause problems. And what's really crazy about this is that as we go through the semester, we start to realize we have neurons that reflect other people back at us. When you look at someone, a neuron in your brain reflects back at them. So if someone is feeling itchy, guess what you start to feel? Itchy. If someone yawns, what happens to 80% of you? Nice, right off the bat. Good one. And you immediately start feeling how other people feel. This is something that's really exciting about humans. In a psychological perspective, there's no divine inner right, there's no demon possession, there's no God, there's no death, there's no anything. It's just, well, what is it? Psychology. So I put the word divine right up here because a lot of what does divine right mean before I go on? You're born, it's not born with it, that you're supposed to have it. Entitled to it, that's the right way to say it. And that's why, so divine right means is given to, I screwed that up, sorry. Given to you because. So is your mind something that we have because we're special? How does science feel about that answer? Some people shaking their heads. Why doesn't science like that answer? Are we just born better than other animals? If you have a particular religious background, you go, of course! But, could I change someone's mind? Yes, I will change your minds this semester. Because according to different ways of thinking, your mind is not given to you, it's built. Well, what's it built based on? Experiences that you have. So I'm going to show you a quick little video clip, which is just really kind of annoying, but I make reference to it all semester. I'm going to remember to pause the recorder so I don't get Googled. Didn't paying attention. Now it's blinking. Awesome. Okay, going back. Is the mind and body the same thing? We all said no. Actually, 2 people said no, but then one person shook their head. So if you're a realist says only things that are tangible and measurable exist. Therefore, is the mind the same as the body? Well, wait a second. Can you measure the body? Yeah, I weigh 241 effing pounds. If you're a realist, they have to be the same because only things that are tangible and measurable are real. Well, if say what you're going to say. If you're a realist, the mind and the body are the same thing. That's not the only perspective. If you're a mentalist, where does everything exist? In your mind. And then as a mentalist, the mind exists and the body is just a container in which it floats around in. It's really crazy. Back in the Middle Ages, where was your soul located? In your heart. Because back in the old days, you get an arrow stuck in your head. You go, ow, and pull it out. If you don't die from an infection, you live. You might limp a little bit, but you live. You get an arrow stuck in your chest, you're dead. So where did they say your soul was? In your chest. When you have a heartbreak, where do you feel it? In your soul, in your chest. Your whole heart has an entire nervous system dedicated to feeling emotions. Really irritating. Everybody's had that. We need to talk. And all of a sudden your stomach goes kaboom. That's your stupid sympathetic nervous system, and it's located right behind your heart. Okay? Okay. So it's more fun when you hear the first, and then clink, clank, 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 clank. Anyway. So, movie theater. Okay. So now, in this class, in psychology, is a psychology realist or a mentalist? No, I can't tell you yet. You'll learn this answer. Whenever we have a question in psychology that you are kind of torn between, choose a little bit of both. There are branches of psychology that we're going to talk about that are realists. The behaviorists, the physiological psychologists. They're realists. They like reality. They measure things that exist. But then there's this thing called psychoanalytic psychology. We'll go through this in a few minutes. There's a bunch of other schools of psych that believe that you exist beyond your physical self. And there's actually a really cool study of psychology. It's called positive psychology. It's really neat stuff. I'm a big hippie. I love this crap. Science-wise, terrible. For example, do you have a soul? Or are you a meme? That's another way of saying it. Hopefully the meme maintains your intent as it flows through life. But if you create an idea, my mother-in-law passed away in 6 years ago. Whatever year 6 years ago it was. 2008, whatever. 19 right now, 6 years. Yeah, thank you. And so even though she passed away a bunch of years ago, do we still use her consciousness? Yeah. What would my mom think about this? That's what my wife says. Or how would my mom think about this? Or when my wife decorates, my mother-in-law loved decorating. And so when she decorates it, she sits and thinks like how her mom would think when this is being decorated. So is her experience still there? Yeah, my dad died in 1997. And when he passed away, he was a giant nerd. And I still carry on a lot of his giant nerd tendencies. And when my son and I are talking about stuff, I still think about when my dad and I were talking about stuff when I was his age. So his consciousness lives on. His meme lives on. Or his soul lives on. Now, I don't care about the egg. But in that particular case, even though I'm a big realist, am I also still a mentalist? Yes. So you got to keep this in perspective. There's no one right answer in this class. There's no one right answer. It's not mind or body, it's both. Does the mind affect the body? Yes, ask anybody who's been stressed. My stomach hurts. Why? I'm stressed. Well, that doesn't make any sense whatsoever. My stomach hurts. I just ate an old tuna fish sandwich. Salmon sandwich, but whatever. So, does your stomach hurt both times? Yeah, one's real and the other one's just as real. Okay. Confusing? Or are we starting to see what psychology is? Very reinforcing. Okay. So, this is a really great thing called psychophysics. When I was in undergraduate, I worked at a lab for psychophysics. It is so freaking cool. Okay? The elements of consciousness. So if you wander up into my office, I've got all sorts of really cool crap up there. I did dump all the urine out that was in the jar because my student said it was gross, but I thought it was cool. You'd have to ask later. So now, but you don't keep urine in your office? Weird. Moving on. So psychophysics is all about how do you find out the limits of the mind? Where are the limits of your consciousness? A lot of young people, when cell phones first came out, installed a ringtone called the Mosquito. Good times. The 90s. And what the Mosquito ringtone was, it was set at a frequency that young people can hear it, but old people can't. So what would happen is, if you get text messages in class, and back then it was lots of thumbing to try to text, okay? Students would you hear this really high-pitched little frequency. How come old people didn't notice that the students were texting? Because it's outside of our old people ear range. Old people hear lower frequencies way better than high frequencies. Old people can't see things up close because the lenses get less flexible as you get older. Just to warn you, everything gets less flexible when you get older. Yeah. You do yoga every day for your entire life and you still get slowly tighter as you get older. So, anyway, but the idea is that by paying attention to what you can see, by paying attention to what you can hear, that is the psychophysics. That is the structure of the mind. Sensation and perception. That's why I showed you the Neil Harbison thing. The guy with the radio eyeball. If you watch the rest of that, he goes on and he paints pictures of what different music sounds like, different speeches sound like. He paints pictures of the colors of the sounds that he hears. So you can actually look at a speech. He also, on his website, you can also go and listen to Picasso. You can listen to famous works of art. He plays the sound of the different works of art. If you pay attention to it long enough, guess what you can get? You get the images if you pay attention to it long enough. It's the same thing. Has anybody learned ASL in here? So when you learn ASL, you stop thinking about how you're moving your hands? Well, you haven't gotten there yet. Once you learn it enough, you just make the motion. And my daughter's learning ASL. She's actually very good at it, which is really strange, because she's very dyslexic and has a really hard time learning foreign languages. ASL is no problem. Because she's learning the hand motions, and she's very kinesthetic. She can easily learn the hand motions, but she can't learn how to spell anything, like me. Anyway, moving on. So, but what's fun is that with sensation and perception, your brain adapts. She's learning ASL, and she will have a conversation with you, and as she's talking with you, she's signing along with it to practice. Sometimes she doesn't know a word, so she just kind of pauses with her hands, but then continues on happily. Because once you have learned something, you need to use it all the time anymore, or does it become unconscious? Because you use it, the more you use it, the more conscious it becomes, the less effort it takes to do. Like if you learn a sport. My son plays basketball-ish. He plays, but anyway. But one of the things is he was going to a coach for a long time that was teaching him how to shoot properly and like really killing him with lots and lots of drills. What started happening during the games? All of a sudden, his feet line up to the basket before he shoots. Is he thinking about it? No, because he's done it so many million times, just standing there by the hoop, feeding him basketballs over and over and over again. Now when he gets the ball, he immediately squares up before he shoots. We just need to get him to do some push-ups because he often shoots short 5, 2, 3 feet. Oh, nice pass. Okay, moving on. He's getting much better at rebounds too. Anyway, but he's very pointy, so his elbows stick out. There's lots of kids with black eyes at Allied Gardens. Okay, so benefit of being pointy. Okay, so the idea of structuralism is the study of psychophysics. Back in the 1800s, little history. Back in the 1800s, we tried to study the mind by studying sensation and perception. And we founded the first lab, and I say we, the old white man, by the name of Wilhelm Wundt. Oops. Wish I could feel the eraser button on this thing, but I just can't feel it. Wilhelm Wundt, in his first lab in psychology, studied reaction time. Super cool. Took a telegraph key. Anybody know what a... Sorry. I was going to say bless you, but it's not really a cough, but you should be blessed anyway. Okay. So, I'm going to put this up here. Can't quite see if I spelled that right, but hey, got it. Ooh, $27. I must buy it right now. Okay, so this is an old school telegraph key. It's not USB compatible, I don't want it. What this is very simple. There's an electric current that goes between the two pins. Okay, between the two pins over here. And because when you touch the pins together, it makes an electrical spark. Really high science. Okay. Let me see if I can find a better picture here. That's a good one. There we go. So what you can do with one of these things is they get a piece of paper, and as the piece of paper rolls underneath this thing, whenever you tap it down, it makes a little burn mark. If you hold it down, what does it do? It makes a line. So they used to communicate by sending these sparks of these giant antennas at like bazillion watts, and then someone with an antenna could listen to the sparks. And that's how they used to communicate over distances. So what Wilhelm Wundt did is he took one of these things and he dropped a piece of a metal ball onto a table. Clank. When the people heard the sound, he pushed the button. And he measured the time between the clicking of the ball and the clicking of the thing, clicking of the telegraph key. He was the first person to measure the mind. He was the first person to actually put physical measurements onto the mind. Very exciting, no, it's not really. Do you all have reaction time games on your phone? Pretty much. There's tons of them you can look at. It's really not that exciting. Did he learn anything? Do you think, do we still study reaction time? Yeah, we do. And in fact, there's a whole school of psychology called the Structural School of Psychology, which actually I've been educated in. That's where I was through. But it's all about studying the structure of the mind. Brain and behavior. Sensation and perception. That's structuralism. We know just as much now as we did when Wundt started, though. Every time we discover more things about the brain, there are so many more things we don't know, it just makes us ask more questions. I'll show you a video next week called the Connectome Project. They discovered, 2 summers ago, they discovered 97 new areas of the brain they didn't know we had. Wilhelm Wundt? Yeah. Wilhelm Wundt. Okay, almost done with the boring stuff, then we get to something a little more exciting. Okay, so second part. This guy by the name of William James. William James said, that's all great, Mr. Wundt, that you're doing reaction time experiments and showing people colored dots and lines on a screen. But functionalism is all about the idea that what does the mind do? Why do we have a mind? That's the functionalist approach to studying psychology. The functionalist approach to studying psychology is actually where most psychology is now. Most psychology now is functional. Because what percentage of psychologists do you think actually work studying the structure of the mind? What do you think? Want to guess? I would say even less than that. I would say about 10% of psychologists study the structure of the mind. Because where do most psychologists work? If they study, it's therapy. Most people who go into psychology are therapists. Because they don't care necessarily about the structure of it, they want to help it function. So corporate is actually becoming a much bigger area of psych. There's an area of psych called industrial organizational psych. If you are a business person, if you like business, if you like corporate, IO Psych is great because you learn to work like with HR. The Sempra Energy has a huge industrial organizational psychology department. My buddy Mike works for Sempra Energy. Well, we'll see if he does. They just filed for bankruptcy. But his job was to convince ratepayers to pay more money and be happy about it. Back 10 years ago, 15 years ago, they had this thing called the Sunrise Power Link. You remember this? They said, we're going to plow through sensitive desert with our bulldozers and make a whole bunch of new roads. And all the off-roaders were like, yeah, new roads. Anyway, and we're gonna kill all these turtles so we can make power cheaper. And people, Sierra Club goes, no, save the desert. And people said, yay, save the desert. We'll pay more. Sempra's going, sure. my buddy Mike was a part of that focus group that came up with the ad campaigns. Why do you think they stopped the water recycling 15 years ago? They were trying to recycle all of San Diego water. San Diego shouldn't import water, we should recycle it. But why, what did they call the initiative? Anybody remember? Toilet to tap? Exactly. Ew. Because the guy who came up with the campaign thought it was gross, so he called it toilet to tap. It turns out that a lot of places recycle water. As opposed to dumping all this fresh water out into the ocean, what do they do? What do they do with it? Well, they dump it into a reservoir. Like our house, we get our water from Lake Murray. Have you ever gone by Lake Murray? And big ass snails. We're drinking that. But do they clean it before we drink it? Yeah. And in fact, the water that's in Lake Murray is probably dirtier than 90% of the water you flush. Every so often after a burrito, never mind. Okay. But the idea, sorry, I'm 12. But the idea is that the whole purpose of William James is really where modern psychology is. How do we use the structure of the mind? How do we use the mind to change people's behavior? And so that's what functionalism is. It's your behavior and your thoughts. That's the function of the mind. Which is a true science? Which one do you think is a true science? No, it's not positive science, sorry. The other one. Structuralism is the true science. But you can't science the mind. So structuralism falls short. Every year, or if you watch a bunch of the structuralist TED Talks that we're going to show you as the semester goes on, they say all we need is better technology. All we need is more resolution. All we need is, and they're never going to get there because the mind doesn't really have a structure, but it has a function. Okay. Because of this stupid word. This is called the Gestalt. I know you've heard this before. That's a G. I don't know what happened there. The Gestalt is a philosophy that says the whole thing is more than the sum of its parts. It's called the Gestalt. You hear a lot of this Gestalt, meaning if you look at a painting, you could look at all the lines on the painting and analyze all the colors on a painting, but does that tell you what the painting is? No, you have to understand the Gestalt. You have to understand the whole thing. And once you understand the whole thing, it has a different meaning. So the humans, well, let's go back to Neil Harbisson. He changed his sensation and perception. He changed the way he was looking at the world. Did that change the way he interacts with the world? It changed his whole thing. What do you notice about his voice as he is talking? He's very monotone. He's extremely monotone, but he sees the world in monochromatic colors. So he perceives the world monochromatically and he talks monochromatically. Very strange. But why is he dressed in pink and blue and yellow? Well, no, because if you watch the whole thing, he basically says, I'm dressed in C major, which is a very positive tone. And he dresses in B minor when he's going to a wedding, or going to a funeral, sorry, same thing. When he goes to a funeral, and B minor is like turquoise, purple, and orange. Because he's dressing as, he's changing his Gestalt based on his new sensation of colors. He's changing the way he thinks. If you learn a foreign language, does it change the way you think? Yes, because a language is every language that you speak has a different process that changes the way that your brain works. If you speak Spanish, masculine and feminine roles are much more established than if you speak English. Because in Spanish, all the nouns have, I'm looking at my Spanish person, all the nouns have masculine or feminine titles. French was the same way, masculine and feminine titles. But in English, a few things do, but most things don't. Most things are just things. And so the gender differences in people who speak French and people who speak Spanish is much greater than in gender differences where there are no names on the noun. It's interesting. It's a fun way to think about it. Because the Gestalt. So the Gestalt was, back in the 30s and 1940s, the Gestalt really started. People stopped looking so much at the structural and functional and then started looking at the whole thing. And then my favorite folks showed up, the behaviorists. These are my people. We don't have a mind. The behaviorist said the mind doesn't exist. Because there's no way to measure it. There's no way to record it. They are getting really good with the structuralist approach of recording your thoughts. I have a brain-machine interface in my office. It's actually over 10 years old now, and you can end up learning to control the computer using the brain-machine interface. In a couple of weeks, I will ask for a volunteer to stick their brain in it, and we will drive the computer around up here using someone's brain in class. It's very nifty. It's very fun. If you have really thick hair, it's difficult, and if I ask you if you want to do it, please shower the day before. I have a student that did not shower the day before, and I'm putting on his head and he stank. Had to sterilize the machine afterwards. Okay, at least wash your hair. Okay, so, but again, behaviorism says there is no mind, because behaviorism is focusing specifically on behavior. Do you think they missed the boat a little bit? This is a really great reaction to the Gestalt. The Gestalt said, it's everything, man. And the behaviorist said, no, it's just behavior. The two art camps do not like each other. Sadly, behaviorism back in the 70s, 60s, 70s, 80s was like the top of the line. And then the guy that founded it, by B.F. Skinner, passed away in 1991. And guess what's happened to behaviorism since he died? It's fading. What's really bizarre is that behaviorism always works. It's always true. And we'll go through that later in the semester. But people like the cognitive school of psychology better. They like the Gestalt. With fancy computers, you can try to measure the way someone's thinking. However, it's not real. Okay. So now, I'm going to enter in here a little bit. Okay, so is anybody a psych major in here? Okay, one. I asked this before. Great. Okay. So there's two aspects up here to how we do this. Okay, if you are not interested in studying psych as a major, don't worry about it. So there's different ways to study psychology. Psychology is the study of the mind. So there's the physio perspective. What do you think the physiological perspective studies? Brain. Okay? Physiological perspective is the brain. Neurotransmitters, chemicals, drugs, physiological psych. There's a great adage that one of my friends has on her t-shirt. She runs a lab. It's no brain, no behavior. With a K, though, not N. Otherwise you get zombies and it's not good. Then there's behavioral. Are you okay? Okay. I don't know why I wrote psychology. They all say psychology after them. I get distracted by a flickering screen. So what's behavioral psychology? Yeah, all it is behavior. I want Rainbow Sparkly for the next one. I wrote Rainbow Sparkly because cognitive psychology is mythological psychology. Cognitive psychology is the study of your thoughts. The study of your thoughts, your thinking, attention, reaction time, all this stuff that we like to try and say exists in our head, but we study it in cognitive psych. San Diego State last year killed the behavioral psych class and switched it to cognitive psych. Goodbye, behaviorism. Psych 211 from, what, 1940 something or 1950 something, whatever San Diego State started. Psych 211 has been behavioral psych. And this last year they changed it to Introduction to Cognitive Psychology. So it just shows you where this classes are going. But why did I write it in little magical font? It's magical. We assume it exists because we can measure your behavior. How do I know what you're thinking? I watch your behavior. That's why we don't need to study behavior anymore. Sorry, I'm bitter. Okay. The more psych you take, the more you realize why that's funny. Otherwise, I'm just rambling. Moving on. So, this one, also magical. It's called psychoanalytic. This is your unconscious mind. This is Freudian. I'll write Freud in pink because it's funny to me. Sigmund Freud was one of the first pioneers of psychotherapy. Psychotherapy was treating someone's mind to fix a physical problem. I'm going to tell you now, your mind causes most of your physical problems. My poor wife's job is extremely stressful. On Sundays, when she has to go back to work, her back tightens up, and her back hurts. Why does her back hurt? She's stressed about her job. And because she's stressed about her job, she sits differently. If you sit differently, or you tense up your muscles, what happens? They hurt. When we saw Silence of the Lambs in the movie theater, they put the lotion on the skin. We saw that. If you haven't seen that movie, there's a scene where the creepy guy's got night vision goggles on, and poor Clarice is sitting there in a dark room with like disembodied bodies and tubs and things and nastiness. And she's like, doesn't know where he is, and he's standing there with a gun with night vision goggles. Afterwards, my abs were tight, like sore, like the whole time. And it was terrible. You watch it on TV on a Sunday afternoon, though, and it's just a stupid movie. But anyway. So Freud said that this unconscious brain, your unconscious mind, causes physical problems. Freud was a doctor, medical doctor, but a lot of his patients didn't have anything physically wrong with them. What was wrong with them? Mind. So he talked to them. And by talking to them, he unpacked their mind, and it solved a lot of their problems. Sadly, a lot of therapy works this way, and it's extremely good. I always draw this little picture. Everybody has one of those little wheelie suitcases. You carry it behind you. It drags behind you every day. What's at the bottom of this little wheelie suitcase? Thank you. What's above the wheel? No, the crap that you packed in the bottom of the suitcase. The time your mom forgot you at kindergarten, that's down there. Oh, there's all sorts of things that are packed down at the bottom of the suitcase. Any sort of traumatic event from childhood that you don't want to visit again. What have you done with it? Dig it deeper and deeper. Pack it down tighter, because what happens if you have to open that and look at it? It hurts. So what do? We zip it closed and put other stuff on top of it. All right. It's like when you finally end up cleaning out your car. Anyway, so when I sold my car from high school, we found like a half a box of donuts under one of the seats. Like, how long has that been there? I don't know. Probably from track season, and that was like 4 months ago. So it was awesome. Anyway, that's one of the best part being a shot putter. You can eat a donut before you compete. The distance runners are like, and we're like, yeah, you can always tell a shot putter because they're carrying a bag of sandwiches to every track meet. Should I answer? Let's see if it's a reverse 911. Where is the phone? Hello? Bob's Bar and Grill, Bob speaking. Brian, did you just call the digital theater? Cool. The phone rang in the digital theater. Oh, no, I'm much taller than Willie. A little heavier. Bye. Okay, I got class. Bye. I can't tell. Bye. That was Brian Josephson, head of DSPS Student Services. He was looking for Lindy Brazil, who is a English teacher who does not look at all like me. Okay. Moving on. That's on the recording. Excellent. Okay, so now. So, the whatever. The psychodynamic or the psychoanalytic approach, is it real or is it magical? Magical. Because? But why is it magical in reality? Well, is it true though? Does it work? If you go to a therapist and they unpack all the crap that you have in that little suitcase, do you feel better after you've unpacked it? Yes, it sucks terribly to dig into it, but once you have solved a lot of these childhood problems, it does solve adult problems. So it's real, but it's based on a lot of hyperjecture or projection into what might have happened or might not have happened. Science-wise, that's where we use the term magical. It's very powerful, it's very good. Science? I'm going to put the other one, I'm going to go back to my gold font because I really like this one. Humanistic psychology. Humanistic psychology is all about the power of this. This annoying word called self. Humanistic psychology is, I think, is one of the best parts of psych and probably the least science. Humanistic psychology is that if you gain power of self, what happens to your behavior? If I give you self-esteem, your behavior changes. One of the craziest things is, how do you get self-esteem? This is the most stupid thing about our humanness. You have to get respect from other people. If other people give you respect, what happens? You feel respected, and therefore you trust how you're going to act. So yourself is a mirror of how other people treat you. If no one ever gives you any respect, very few people have the ability to stand up and still have self-respect. That's why in a lot of populations, if we completely, constantly bang and pash and push down different populations in our culture, how do those people feel? Less self. And it's really interesting to look at this because this is an extremely powerful thing. There's no science whatsoever behind it. It's not magical because it's real. Because you all have a sense of self. And it's a lot of humanistic psychology is all about exploring this idea of sense of self. So I'm going to draw a straight line. And okay, so how do we use this? How do we apply this to things that are really important? What's the number one thing that psychologists do? Clinical or counseling psych. Most psychologists are applied psychologists that do clinical or counseling. If you were, both of you, want to get a degree in psychology, most people want to go into counseling. Because when you go into counseling, do you use all these different areas? Do you think counselors care about your humanistic self? Totally. Do they care about your unconscious motivations, desires? They care about the baggage. Okay, they care about your thoughts. There's a really great school of psychology called cognitive behavioral psych, which is a clinical applied version of the studies of psych. And cognitive behavioral, my daughter suffered from anxiety a lot when she was in 3rd grade. Lots of girl drama. I'm so glad my son doesn't have any of that. They just punch each other and get, okay, okay. So the girl drama can last for weeks. So-and-so didn't get invited to so-and-so's birthday because so-and-so said so-and-so was mean. So what happened at school the next day? Everybody was talking about how awesome the birthday party was, and poor person who wasn't invited because they were mean felt extremely left out. This happened multiple times throughout the little social network. The little social network would choose a particular kid to be mean to at a particular time. Never happened with my son and his friends. But because they wouldn't get invited, he goes, that's fine, I'll stay home and watch TV. That was it. That was the end of the drama. Anyway, we're simple creatures. Okay, fine. I can just see who's on Xbox. Okay, so the cognitive behavioral psych person had my daughter write down the things that were stressing her out. Write them down. And then she put them in a box. Every day we opened the box and talked about the things that were bothering her. Cognitive behavioral psych. What did she realize? 2 o'clock in the afternoon, you get home from school. Remember this when you were kids? It's like the best time ever. You get home from school, it's like, woohoo! And you're like, you have a snack. Just enjoy the not being at school part. Good time. I still have a snack every day after school. But it's my favorite thing ever. But so we spent that 15 minutes talking with her about the problems that she had. Does she want to sit and talk about her problems? No, it's actually, she realizes, oh, what if a bear breaks into the house? That was one of them on her little slips. There's been a bear in San Diego for 200 years, but we killed them all a long time ago. So she's like, well, yeah, I'm worried about a bear breaking into the house, or robbers breaking into our house. In our neighborhood, that does happen, but that's not important. But so she's worried about these things, but then she realizes, are they rational or irrational? They're irrational because they don't make sense. A bear is not going to break into our house. We haven't told her that at the condo at June Lake, bears do break into the condos up there, and they've broken into 2 or 3 of them, but that's not important. We're not bringing that up. Okay. So clinical counseling uses the schools of psychology. One of the other ones that I really like is called developmental. Developmental psych is the study of babies, how we grow and change throughout our lives. I studied developmental physiological baby brains. When I worked at a research lab at San Diego State, we actually got to work with kids. We didn't take the kids' brains out, but we measured them behaviorally as they grew up. We also worked with kids that had fetal alcohol syndrome, moms who drank during pregnancy. We also worked at a rat lab who had rats exposed to alcohol prenatally. We did chop their heads off and look at their brains. Sorry, rats. Yeah, it was kind of mean. I've got a lot of carminic debt in my soul. I'll have lots of needles stuck in me for a while in purgatory. Sorry, rats. Okay, so, but it's a developmental psych. We're studying how the brain develops in response to different events in the child's life. Very cool stuff. There's also study of personality. There's social psychology. What's going on here, Rissa? Not any better. Okay, so the study of personality is how you act. People love the study of personality. There's a whole applied field of psychology about studying personality. Sadly, a lot of it's used on dating websites, but that's not important. Social psychology is how we act in groups. It's where sociology and psychology match to each other. They hit each other right here at social psychology. There's so many different ways that we apply psychology to different things. I'm going to put IO up here because we talked about it already. IO is what? Business. Mr. Business. Okay? President Business. That's what it was. Okay. So, business. IO psychologists make a lot more money than other kinds of psychologists. Okay, what about sports psychology? Is that a thing? Yeah, so what you do is you take the study of psych, and you apply it to... Is sports psychology for athletes or for coaches? For coaches. Sports psychology teaches coaches how to coach better. What's funny is my father-in-law used to always say, oh, sports psychology is a bunch of bullshit. Well, if you actually listen to the way he coaches, he follows all the good things of sports psychology. Because he always thought the sports psychologists were there to help make the athletes better. They're not there to make the athletes better. The sports psychologist is there to help the coach learn how to manipulate the athletes better. Manipulate in a good way, not an evil way. Okay, it can be for evil as long as your team wins. It's okay. Right? No. Okay. So, as we keep rolling down, could we keep adding more applied areas of psych? And so what we're going to do is, at the beginning of the class, for the first couple weeks of the semester, we're going to go through the physio, behavioral, and cognitive school of psychology. We're going to really hit the physio, behavioral, and cognitive really hard at the beginning of the semester. Once you have a good understanding of how those work, then we're going to get into the applied psychology. One of the big things that we talk about a lot in this class is racism. Racism comes from social psych. It's the applied aspect of social psychology. And do you think racism comes from the self? If you treat other people differently, does how you feel about yourself influence how you treat other people? Yes. Racism comes from unconscious anxiety. A lot of people have unconscious racial bias, called implicit association test that we use. But you automatically feel uncomfortable around people of different ethnicities. So if we unpack that and figure out why you're feeling uncomfortable, does that change your racist ideas? Yes. It's the same thing as if you hear lots of annoying rhetoric about, well, all people that come across the border are gangsters or whatever. Anybody know the #1 undocumented population in the United States is? Yeah, Asian people, because that's half the population of the planet, that have overstayed their visas. That's the #1 scourge on our society, according to certain news channels. But what's interesting is that why do people assume it's a MS gang member, MS-13, MS-16, I don't know, whatever. What if that's all you see on the news? Does that change your thoughts? Yeah. Well, that's social psych. If you walk by of a person of different ethnicity and you check your wallet, please don't do that, okay? Because the ones you don't see are the ones that steal your wallet, not the ones you're looking at. So, what the problem is that if you change the way your behavior, do other people change their behavior? Yes. Okay. And, oh well, can we find racism in the brain? Yeah. There's a part of your brain called the insula. The insula makes you feel disgusted. And people who activate their disgust centers faster, who get grossed out faster, are more likely to be racist. Because they're feeling an emotion faster than people who don't feel that emotion. People who don't feel that emotion very quickly don't judge people as fast. People who feel the emotion judge people faster. Anyway, so just by looking at just one little topic in one part of this, we can use all the different ways of psychology to try to explain. And remember what the point of psychology is. I'm going to go scroll back up to the top. Explain, describe, understand, and try to control behavior. Try to help behavior. That's where the application comes in. All right. I know today's not very exciting, but it's history. Next class, we're going to start learning how to design experiments. Okay? We have class Monday? Yeah, Monday. And so, please make sure you're here because we're going to do a little in-class activity, designing experiments.